Hi guys. So I know a lot of you are a little bit confused or stressed about the outline, so I wanted to kind of walk you through it a little bit and give you some more tips. I tried this video already, but it was bad the first time, so we're gonna try it. First of all, you have to pick a topic. Most important thing, hopefully you did that several weeks ago. If you're confused on where to go from there, this is me trying to talk you through it since I can't be there in person. So I'll, again, pick something interesting to you. If I didn't pick Legos, I would maybe pick llamas. This is our little buddy, Paco, the llama. And I'd want to kind of narrow it down from there because llamas can be a huge topic. So this is why you have different points to each thing. So when I first decided on this, I'm like, okay, how do I want to pick something specific with llamas? So you could, for example, decide how to take care of a llama, do a how-to speech. Now, I used to train a llama for a short period of time, so this would be a good topic for me to talk about because I know a little bit about it. However, even if I didn't, I could still find it by researching it using sources. So you start out with your topic, llamas. Go to a central idea, how to take care of a llama. Then you need your 3 points. Now, if you want to break it down, how to take care of a llama, it's pretty easy. You have, first of all, housing and food. How are you going to take care of it? What are you going to feed it? That sort of thing. So housing and food. Second point would be general training. So how do you train them to do the things that are useful for a llama to do? And the third point would be maybe common misconceptions or things that people don't understand about llamas. So if you're starting with the introduction, you already have 2 of the 3 points you need for introduction. So if you look at the template that I sent you guys, the very first thing it says is, let's make sure this still works, is the title of your informative speech, which in this case would be your how to take care of a llama. And then you have your, then you have your introduction. There's 3 things there you need to fill out. The attention getter I would use for this is a short anecdote. So in my notes, I would type short anecdote about first time working, meeting with, interacting with llamas. And I would tell that short story, but in my outline, since I know the story, I would just write short story about interacting with llama for the first time. That's my attention getter. Then the central idea you have there, I would write how to take care of a llama. And then below that, in the main points, or the, what do they call that? Preview of main points, you would write, these are the basics, things we're going to talk about. First of all, housing and food. Second of all, training. Third of all, common misconceptions about llamas. Those are the things you have to write. Now, in the actual speech, I would give it something like this. This is a start. When I was in junior high, I went with my friend Alex to the county fair, and we were very excited because my stepmom had told me we were going to be training, I was going to be training a llama. I wanted to see llamas in person. So we went to the llama barn where people were showing their llamas, showing how they could lead them, etc. And my friend and I experienced the most bizarre but common misconception about llamas in real life, and she actually got spit on by a llama. Turns out she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but I'll tell you more about that at the end. I want to tell you something about how to take care of a llama because they're often misunderstood creatures and people wonder what the heck they're there for. So I want to tell you a little bit about that. And in that, we're going to look at the housing and food, how to train them, and some common misconceptions that you guys may believe. Boom, there's my introduction, right? Short, less than a minute. Keep it short and sweet. Now, on your outline underneath that, there's this little part called transition. That's where you're going to write a sentence that takes you from your introduction to your body. So I would write something like, the first thing to think about when thinking about llamas and how to take care of them is where they're going to live. So some short sentence about, now when we first think about llamas, or the first thing we think about has to be where they're going to live. That takes me into point 1, which is housing and food. Now on the outline, you then have the body, you have main point 1, and then you have what are called supporting details. So under main point 1, what you're going to write there is housing and food. And then underneath it, you're going to write all the details that you need to remember. Now, this is where you're going to write longer sentences because you're not going to be able to remember them as well, and you need to show that you've done your research. You don't need to write it in a paragraph word for word, but you're going to write sentences similar to the way that I wrote the one about Legos. So you have things like main point 1, where Legos come from, how they got started. And then the point under that, which is something I would say, is according to Lego.com, Danish words leggolt mean play well. In Latin, the words mean I put together, but they didn't know that until after the company was started. So you can write longer sentences there, and I recommend it. That's also where you want to write in, and you can see it in italics, write in the places where you have to mention your sources. So the very first thing I have there is housing and food. But the first thing I'm going to say after my transition are the things in the supporting details. So I will say my transition, first thing to think about is where they're going to live. Jump into the body, right? Then I would say something like, according to PetAssure.com, this is a source that I found online, you need to have this type of housing. And then I would go on to give more details about the food. Okay, so anytime you have sources, you have to verbally say them, and then I'll explain in a different video or in a document how to do the sources. But you do need to verbally say them, like it's written on the Lego outline, and like I would write on my llamas one. So in your body, you've got your 3 main points: housing and food, training for the llamas, and then common misconceptions. So under each one of those, I would write the details I want. For housing and food, I would talk about the type of place they need to live, whether they can be in cold weather or warm weather, do they need any sort of heating, how often do they need to be sheared so they're not too warm, that sort of thing. And within that as well, I would talk about food. What are the types of food they need to eat, how often, how much does that cost, that sort of thing. After that first point, you have another transition. So you would say something like, you can write this out, it's also important not only to think about where they're going to live, but also what are they useful for, which transitions us into point 2, training. And then underneath the training part, I would again mention my sources where needed, but I would talk about things like llamas being useful for leading and carrying things, people going on long hikes in certain areas of the world, long walks. They're pack animals. They're also useful as guards, so training them how to guard sheep, that sort of thing. Now going to point 3, you have another transition, and I would put that there as well. I would say, now that you know something about what you would do with a llama, let's actually cover some of the common misconceptions that we talk about. That's a transition between point 2 and point 3. Point 3 would be common misconceptions. We talk about misconception that llamas spit on people all the time. They don't actually. They only spit when they're angry or scared, and they usually spit at each other. We'd also talk about other common misconceptions, maybe people not knowing what they're used for, people didn't realize like they make kind of a humming sound and what those humming sounds mean, stuff like that, okay? Then, that's your body. You have transition between that and the conclusion. So you could say something like, now that you know a little bit more about these silly animals, I blah, blah, blah. I can't think of something off the top of my head, but you have something similar, some transition there. And then you can combine in the thing, I think it's points, in the conclusion, it's points A and B, the review of main points and restating central idea. You can kind of combine those into one thing. So you can say something like, we've now learned a little bit about how to train a llama, where you would feed, or where you would house it, where you would feed it, what you would feed it, and some of the things you maybe didn't know before. So hopefully you've learned something more about these incredible animals. As my friend Alex and I discovered, this is going to the very last thing, which is the closing statement. As my friend Alex and I discovered, you can actually get spit on by llamas, and there are some risks to living with and working with these animals. But if you learn more about them, you know how to stay out of the way of their spittle, and also what to do with them. And also, I don't know, something like that. You learn how to stay out of the way of them and their spittle, and how to really take advantage of the incredible opportunity of training them. Boom, that's my closing statement. So my attention getter and my closing statement are connected. The beginning of the story, the end of the story. Hopefully this helps. On your outline, those are the things you're gonna like talk through. But it's also important that you have the sources at the end. I will do that in a separate video or document, just so people don't get confused, because this is 10 minutes long. But hopefully this helps you out. If you have any more questions, just email me. Make sure you spell my name with 2 R's, 2 P's, and I will make sure to send things not only to your email, if you write to me, but also kind of general things I will send to all of you via email and EduPage, so that you don't lose anything. Hope you guys have a good day, and Paco and I say hello. Bye.